G'day, guysers.
G'day.
Hope you're all bonzo and fair income.
Welcome to the Problematic Guys.
Here we are in our special Australia week.
Okay, shall we stop that now?
Let's stop that now. We don't do it for America. Why are we doing it for Australia?
I don't know. Yes, we're dipping down under this week. We are the Problematic Guys. I'm Dave Moor.
And I'm Dr. Lee Arnott. Each episode, we take a piece of pop culture from the last 60 years and examine it through the problematic lens to ask ourselves, could you make that today? And if not, why not? And what that says about society and culture then, and what it says about society and culture now.
And before we take a deep dive into our chosen topic, we'll take a look at the news events of the day. We'll also look at the TV or film landscape and the pop charts, just to put our chosen topic into context.
Very good.
And before we do anything else, Dr. Lee Arnott.
Yes.
We've had a review.
Yes, we have, Mr. Dave Moore. We've had a bloody review in the Radio Times. How amazing is that?
That's amazing. And you know what? It only took 5 days for us to notice.
Yeah. We only noticed because my friend sent it to us and said, have you seen this? It was like, no, we've got our finger on the PR pulse, darling, haven't we?
We got our finger on the PR pulse, but we have to say thank you to Jeremy, who gave us a glowing review in the Radio Times. I mean, how fantastic is that?
Yeah, and to top it all this week, Dave, we found out we're in the top 40 of the UK podcasts. How cool is that as well?
Wow. How cool is that as well? And it's all thanks to our gazers out there who continue to listen.
We're so grateful. You make the show what it is. We love hearing from you, and we just adore you, our listeners out there.
We adore you.
We adore you, and I think they like us as well. They like us as well, Dave, I think.
They like us. They really like us, in the words of Sally Field, obviously.
Indeed.
Anyway, I think that might be enough vocal wanking.
Yes.
Should we get on with the show?
I think you were going to say, should we get on with real wanking? Let's get on with the show.
We just want to shout out to our gazers, old and new. Please hit that follow button, because hitting that follow button really helps to spread the word of the Problematic Gaze. So without further ado, we are delving down under. It's our first Antipodean foray, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And do you know what, Dave?
Yeah.
He used to bring me roses.
I wish he could again.
Well, why can't he?
Because that was on the outside.
Oh.
And things were different then.
Okay. Yeah. You're quite excited about this, aren't you?
I really am.
This is your Wicker Man.
Yeah, this is my Wicker Man. This is my Roman Empire, as they say in modern parlance.
We're looking at Prison Cell Block H. Now, I don't need to ask you, but for the benefit of our listeners, what is your relationship with Prisoner Cell Block H? Have you got your tenor lady on first?
Yeah, I've got my tenor lady on. I've got a very intimate relationship.
Okay.
Now, Prison Cell Block H, which will give you the full details a bit later on.
Not the full details, because it's like 600 episodes, isn't it?
Not the full. Well, we'll give you the abridged version. But it went on from 1979 to 1986.
Wow.
That was in Australia. And then it started getting distributed among the TV networks in the UK, America and Canada as well. But in the UK, 1990, I would have been about 15. I started watching it. It was on late at night, 11 o'clock, and I was at boarding school at the time.
Boarding school?
Yeah, but that's for another therapy session. And I remember having to borrow...
He says it's like in the royal family, but you went to boarding school. All right, Harry Potter.
And... Let's just gloss over that. I remember borrowing my friend's 5-inch black and white telly.
Yeah.
I mean, it was very kind of basic, rudimentary.
But amazing at the time.
Yeah, amazing at the time. And obviously because lights out were at 10:30, prisons didn't start till 11, so I had to watch it under the covers.
What did people think you were doing under your covers, I wonder, in a boarding school?
Well, I'm sure they jumped to a conclusion about what I might be doing, but actually I was watching Prison Cell Block H. And it was my little way of escaping the outside world.
Right.
You know, because I was a little in-the-closet gay boy, still trying to figure out where I fit in the world. Wasn't necessarily a happy young boy because I was in the closet and
boarding school.
And boarding school, yes. So my little foray under the covers once a week at 11 o'clock to watch Prison Cell Block H was... my little escape.
Yes, yeah.
Who knows why I was actually drawn to it? I mean, the signs were there from a very early age because Prisoner is considered to be an LGBT go-to classic.
Yes, it is.
I think it was all the women.
It would be all the women. Same reason I love Tenko.
Yes, exactly. Women...
under pressure.
Women under pressure. Women fighting the patriarchy.
Yeah.
All that kind of shit. So yeah, that's my relationship with it.
Yes.
What about you?
I never saw it. I was aware that it had become a cult, but for some reason I just never watched it. And I didn't watch it until we lived together. And then I started to watch your DVD collection. And I got about halfway through season 2, I think. Yeah. And then, however, Wentworth, the reboot, started. And because I'd watched Prisoner and was gay enough to be sufficiently drawn to it and have it in my orbit, then I started to watch Wentworth and absolutely loved Wentworth and think it's one of the best dramas ever. So, but for the original, you've heard all the jokes, you know, we know what to expect. I was looking forward to 45 minutes of intense character work and dialogue which rocked your soul. And I got a step up from Acorn Antiques and I loved it.
Okay, you can see my little hackles rising.
Yeah, I saw that. And I don't want to say it was so bad it was good, but it's on that spectrum. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, let's face it, the elephant in the room. Prisoner Cell Block H is often kind of derided for wobbly sets, questionable acting, cheap.
Yeah.
They're all things that I think throughout the course of this discussion I might like to just challenge, not necessarily debunk.
No, and get me wrong, it was all part of the charm of it. Yeah. I loved the aesthetic of it because it was clearly done on a quick turnaround, you know, and the sets are really basic, you know, it's very much clearly filmed in a not a very big studio. Loved all that, you know, so I'm never once going to slag it off because I really enjoyed it. But I can't say it was 45 minutes of high quality telly.
Well, I think that's a really good way of describing Prisoner Cell Block H. It's got charm about it.
Yes, it's very charming. It's really charming.
It doesn't have any pretensions about being grander than it is.
No.
You know. But we'll go into that in greater detail later on.
Like the best camp, it's camp because it doesn't know it's camp. And we'll talk about camp later. I think it's really interesting. So, 1982 is the year our telly Tardis has landed in.
Yes. We watched a particular episode 326 to be precise, if people want to watch it. We'll post a link to it. It's on YouTube. And it's often considered to be one of the classic episodes because it features a massive confrontation between a prisoner and a prison warder that has been brewing for months. So it's the denouement of that. It's got the excitement of a fire. But that's all I'll say for now because Lee will deep dive into the story of our episode later on.
So to continue our Antipodean theme, we've sprinkled some Australian news in amongst our UK news events as we cross to the news desk. On the 11th of January 1982, Mark Thatcher disappears doing the Paris-Dakar rally, disappears in the Sahara Desert, the son of Margaret Thatcher, Prime Minister. And 3 days later, he's found safe and well in the Sahara Desert.
Panic over.
Panic over.
Yeah, that was a big thing, wasn't it? There was interviews with Margaret Thatcher, the concerned mother, and I think the general consensus was, well, he's obviously a bit of a wally, he's got himself lost.
Yes, yeah, that was clearly it, yeah. Turn left instead of turning right.
So on the 1st of February, massive sighs. Have you taken a breath?
Yeah.
Good. On February the 1st, sales of tabloid newspapers are reported to have been boosted substantially since late summer by the introduction of Bingo.
Yeah.
The Sun has reportedly enjoyed the biggest rise in sales, now selling more than 4 million copies in a day on a regular basis.
That's astonishing, isn't it? I remember when the paper started to do bingo. It was huge. Loads of adverts at the time with page 3 girls with all the bingo cards and stuff.
Yeah.
They must have relaxed the gambling laws or something recently, which is why they've been allowed to offer huge cash prizes because the tabloids went in a war against who could offer the biggest cash prize.
And also hand in hand with that, if your sales are being boosted, as are your rivals, then you're going to be on the quest to get better stories, better sensationalist stories as well. So the investigating methods of the journalists, obviously, get more underhand and more sneaky.
Journalists are pretty scummy anyway at this point. The classic image of, you know, some dishevelled alcoholic smoking with an overcoat on. Yeah, it was clearly not far from Fleet Street as still a thing, you know, the old style journalism.
Freddie Starr ate my hamster.
Did he? Bastard. The 25th of February, the European Court of Justice rules that schools in Britain cannot allow corporal punishment against the wishes of parents. I thought this was interesting because it shows that corporal punishment is still a thing in schools. And my middle school, which I went to in 1983, we still got the sand shoe, the ruler, the back of the hand. Yeah. Teachers would just throw things at you.
Yeah.
We'd have to queue up in lines at the end of break time. And if you were seen talking in line, you got pulled out the front. You got one of the sadistic bastard teachers used to give you 5 really hard kicks up the arse that you have to run around the football field.
I got it a couple of times. I got a football boot thrown at my head by the football teacher.
Right. I got the same with the rugby teacher, kicked me up the arse.
Oh, and then I always remember, and this was when I went to senior school in the first year, so it must have been around about 1986. Wow. 1985. So this is after this.
Yeah.
So completely illegal what they did, but I was chewing gum in class.
Right.
And this woman teacher made me bend down and spit it out. And when she did, she beat me over the head.
Oh my
Literally
God.
smacked me, and it went on for about a minute, and she was shouting at me. I think there was other issues going on in her life.
She was touched.
She was touched, but I mean, the sadistic things that teachers used to get up to was horrible. I mean, she would have been in prison by now.
Yeah.
But it hasn't scarred me, I'm fine.
No, you're fine, love. Tim, you're such a little bastard when you were a kid. I used to get battered, but I wouldn't mouth my house.
So on the 20th of March, thousands of people walked across the Sydney Harbour Bridge to mark its 50th anniversary. A little bit of Australian news.
A little bit of Australian news there. Good.
That's as far as... Great.
That's nice.
To all your Australian listeners out there, I hope you found that informative.
Congratulations. 21st of May, the Hacienda opens in Manchester. Did you ever go to the Hacienda?
No.
No, I didn't either. Good.
On the 28th of May, Pope John Paul II's visit to the United Kingdom, the first by a reigning pope, begins at Gatwick Airport.
That's a glamorous start.
Let's go to England. Let's experience the rolling green fields of Kent, the sweeping North Yorkshire moors.
Yeah.
No, Gatwick Airport.
At least it wasn't Luton.
Yeah, too right.
Could have met Lorraine Chaser if it was.
Yeah. Lorraine Airport. He lands at Gatwick Airport and later meets the Queen in London. Do you remember Pope John Paul II? He kind of had an image of being a bit of a rock star. You know what I mean?
I remember his visit and everybody going nuts for it.
Yeah, but also it was really aided by his spitting image puppet, where he was considered to be kind of like a James Brown kind of figure, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Really kind of like soulful and rocky and hardcore and fun.
Yeah, but it was the Pope.
Yeah.
Hated us.
Why for being
flamboyant?
I would have hated us. I thought it meant British people in general. I'll just hate the gays.
Yeah. Oh, but then on the 8th of August, there's obviously a thing this year. The Dalai Lama visits Australia to mark the 30th anniversary of the establishment of Buddhism in the country. Oh. Quite late, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just go, yes, Dr. Lee.
Yes, Dr. Lee.
Your turn.
On the 9th of June, the 20p coin first issued into circulation.
I remember that.
I remember that.
I remember saying everything's too much like the 5p coin, all the old people. It's always the old people who say they can't handle it.
Can't stop progress.
You can't stop progress.
That's from Muriel's wedding. It's a quote from Muriel's wedding. Just for all our Australian listeners, I'm trying to
doing it very
envelope you.
Envelope you.
Yes.
On the 9th of July, the Queen has a bit of a shock because she wakes up and Michael Fagan has broken into her bedroom and just stands there and has a conversation with her before he's apprehended.
Yeah.
I've seen The Crown. I know what happens.
I've seen The Crown too, It's exactly like it happened in The Crown.
Exactly like it was. In fact, The Crown was based on... The Crown happened first, didn't it? Before?
I don't know. It's all blurred.
It's all confusing.
Yeah, it's all blurred. I'm not sure.
Was Olivia Colman born? Yeah. Anyway.
And then on the 12th of October, Queenie, Elizabeth II, officially opens the new building of the National Gallery of Australia in Canberra.
She's had a busy year.
She has. She went down under that year.
She did.
Yeah.
A bit like us.
So this was prior to Princess Diana and Charles going down under a year or two later.
I think probably a year later.
Yeah.
Yes, because William's just been born this year, so I think it's going to be early next year. We've seen The Crown,
We've seen The Crown.
Yeah, we know what happened.
She wasn't happy, was she?
No, she wasn't.
In a little shack in the outback with William.
Yes, and all that paps.
Yeah.
On the 7th of November, the Thames Barrier is first publicly demonstrated.
Oh.
Yeah, never been.
Have you been to the Thames Barrier? I have.
Have you?
Well, went on one of them rockets on the Thames.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Takes you all the way down there.
Yeah.
Absolutely bloody massive.
It's got to be. Hold back the sea.
Because when you look at it in pictures, it just looks like a couple of little bobs in the water, doesn't it? Massive. Huge. Already
proving that they need to do extra bits to it because it's proving not going to be effective.
Really?
If a great flood comes. Yeah. Global warming.
Bit of political news here. On the 28th of November, opinion polls show the Conservative government with an approval rating of up to 44% and well on course for a second successive electoral victory, 13 points ahead of Labour.
This is obviously on the back of the Falklands, which is this year. We have talked about some events in 1982 in our Hello episode, way back in episode 3.
Yes, when we were just getting started.
I think I was in a wardrobe at that point.
Yeah, that's one of the ones I don't listen to. Yeah. In case it's really naff. For any new listeners, please visit our back catalogue.
Maybe not. Well, actually, no, listen to them all. See how we've developed.
Yes, exactly.
Look at us now.
I know.
I mean, you've had to contort yourself like something from Barnum Circus to get in behind your microphone today, but at least we're not in a fucking wardrobe.
Exactly. And we've got the Royal Albert Hall booked for January 2026.
Yes, we have. So that was 1982 in the news. Should we have a look what was on TV?
Yeah, well, Victoria would say that. Shall we have a look about what's on TV? So that was the news events of 1982. Lee, what are we looking at TV-wise?
Well, TV-wise, we've got some notable Australian television events and then also some debuts in the UK that year, 1982. So in Australia, of course, we're bound to say Australia, legally bound to say Australia with an accent every single time we mention it. 9 networks on the 2nd of January, 9 networks popular soap opera The Young Doctors makes its UK television debut on the Central Independent Television Network.
Do you remember The Young Doctors?
I didn't ever watch it because it was on at school time and it wasn't like a neighbour's lunchtime, then repeated in the evening. I think it was more like 3 o'clock. And the ones I caught, I just thought was phenomenal because the theme tune, the fashions, I mean, it's clearly from the 70s. Just glorious, isn't it? Yeah.
And isn't it funny how Australia seemed like an exotic.
But it was.
At that point.
Yeah, it was. And that's one of the appeals of Neighbours, why Neighbours took off. Because suddenly everybody's got, even though it's in rainy Melbourne, everyone's got swimming pools in their gardens and
they're
stuff.
all tanned.
Yeah. With all the Kylie Minogue.
I always thought it was strange in Neighbours when they would go to the fridge and pour orange juice out the fridge. That was kind of like an alien concept to me at the time. I thought it was so exotic because we didn't really have orange juice where we
No, we had squash.
Yeah.
And Dad was the pot man, so... bottle of cream soda.
And then they always used to pour it out and then leave the room and never drink it. I used to think, what a waste.
Waste.
Yeah.
Wasteful.
Wasteful, those Aussies. Okay, continuing in Australia. On the 18th of January, Australian soap opera Sons and Daughters premieres on the 7 network.
Another one that's going to hit the UK. It's funny how suddenly we start to get all the Australian soaps, isn't it? Sons and Daughters, great theme tune.
Yeah.
Never watched it. Love and Laughter, Tears and Sadness and Happiness.
Yes.
Yeah.
My God. It's strange what's stored in the data banks, isn't it?
It's a bit scary. On the 7th of April, British children's animated series Danger Mouse makes its first screening on ABC in Sydney and some other states in Australia. So they're getting Danger Mouse, we're getting Sons and Daughters. A fair exchange?
I think that's a fair swap.
You decide.
Yeah. On the 25th of October, Channel 7's rural drama serial, A Country Practice, begins airing on 7 regional ITV companies in the UK. It's a big year. I mean, they were just inundated.
It's like an invasion. Gosh.
Strangely enough, Prisoner doesn't come.
Maybe because Prisoner, you couldn't show it in daytime. This is all daytime slots, isn't it? Prisoner was, as we'll discover, was far too adult for the daytime slot. When was it broadcast in Australia, Prisoner? Was it in the evening?
Yes,
must have
So.
been.
I don't think hugely late.
Right. Debuting this year in Australia and UK is Dave the Triffids. An adaptation, BBC adaptation of the John Wyndham novel, which scared the crap out of me as a child.
Well, I was waiting with bated breath because it was so hyped the day of the Triffids, wasn't it? And then I remember watching it thinking, they're just really slow-moving plants.
Yes, they were, but they had that thing that could whiplash you and blind you, and that would slow you down. They didn't need to move fast, that's the thing. They didn't need to be fast. It was the titles that terrified me. That creepy electronic music, faded images of people just looking up at the sky and screaming and holding their eyes and stuff. It was that was the scariest part.
Right.
I loved the Triffids. I thought they were great. We've got some other big debuts this year in the UK.
Boys from the Black Stuff, Gives a Job.
Gives a Job. Big indictment of Thatcher's Britain. 1982 Thatcher's Britain is really struggling at this point. The Falklands have been a panacea for however shit everything else is. Seminal piece of work. I've never seen it. It's on the iPlayer. I'm going to watch it, actually.
Yeah, Yeah, it's great. I watched it a few years ago. Julie Walters is great in it as well.
Right. I didn't realise she was in it. Gosh. Channel 4 starts this year, so we get Brookside and Countdown starting.
Yes, loved Brookside. I used to be a huge soap addict back in the day. I still continue to be.
I just watched EastEnders, but that was it.
Yeah. Number 73. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. ITV, Saturday morning kids show. Yeah, bit anarchic. It was a little bit naff.
I think it was ITV's response to whatever was going on the other side.
Yeah, but what it was the summer replacement thing. And so, because we've also got Saturday Superstore introduced this year, and the autumn to spring one was always the stronger one because there's more viewing figures because the weather's shit. So the summer one tends to be a bit lower rung of the tier. They weren't as premiere.
Yeah.
On Safari this year with Christopher Biggins and Gillian Tailforth.
Loved that.
So did I.
Yeah. Do you remember when they had to go through the gunge?
Yes.
I'd like to see that now and see just how crap it was.
Yeah, it's gonna be shit.
But you can feed kids any old shit, can't you?
Yes,
I think children's tastes have become more sophisticated.
Of course they have. Everybody's has, yeah.
I mean, back in this day, we were just forced to watch it, weren't we?
Well, there's nothing else on.
No.
Hello.
Shine on Harvey Moon.
Yes.
That was a nice, popular show, wasn't it?
Yes, it
I really
was.
liked that. I remember watching that with my grandma.
Yeah,
She
I
loved
watched it
that.
with my nana as well, actually. Yeah. It was set in the 40s, wasn't it?
Yeah, Maggie Steed.
Yes. Kenneth Cranham, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. Treasure Hunt on Channel 4 with Annika Rice. I mean, one of my faves, my absolute personal faves.
I remember when we shared a flat, we used to watch
Yes.
Treasure Hunt. And some of it was just impossible, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Some of the clues.
And you know that if they've spent longer than 9 minutes on the first clue, they're not going to get it. No. It's all over. Suddenly if they've got Annika dropping out of a helicopter into the middle of the ocean for clue number 5 and she's got 2.5 minutes to do it, they're not going to get it. No. Not going to get it. And it's so weird seeing people go into reference books, wasn't it, for their, and the big map on the table. Yeah.
It's like these days when the apprentice contestants aren't allowed to use their phones.
Yes. Yeah.
Have to do it all manually.
Imagine dropping the apprentice contestants into an episode of Treasure and seeing what would happen. Gosh.
Fucking hell, they'd crash within about the space of 2 minutes.
I'd like to think that Annika Rice dropping in from 1982 into The Apprentice now, she'd blast it.
Oh my God.
Yeah, she will in Challenge Annika, won't she?
Well,
That's like The Apprentice every week.
She'd do it with one arm tied behind her back.
And blindfold.
Yeah. Also debuting this year, we've got The Tube.
Channel 4's answer to the Top of the Pops, I suppose. The Cooler Cousin.
The Cooler Cousin, which I didn't really get on with.
It wasn't really get on with us, though.
It's a bit too cool for school.
Yes, it wasn't aimed at us.
No.
We were too young for it.
Yeah.
It wasn't aimed at us either, was The Young Ones, but we absolutely adopted it.
Oh, my God. My brother was a huge fan of The Young Ones because he was a punk at the time. And we used to sit and watch it, and I loved it. And I watched an episode about 6 months ago, and it really stood up.
Did it?
Really funny still. Right. Sometimes you watch these things from the early 80s and they're a bit naff, but I just think it's a testament to the writing in it. And the performances, obviously.
Yes. It's sufficiently interesting as a historical piece now, isn't it?
Yeah,
what it was showing, the subcultures it was showing.
And it just reminded me of
student life.
What hovels we used to live in as students back in the day. I mean, you look at it now, there's all these rules and regulations. God, I used to live in some dives.
So should we have a look at what's happening in the charts this week? This is the UK singles chart before we go over to our Australian cousins. This is the UK singles chart of the 7th of November, 1982. We'll just look at the top 10, should we?
Yes, let's do it.
Let's look at the top 10.
Let's do it. Okay. Very good. Classic. First up, number 10, Maneater, Daryl Hall and John Oates.
Very good.
Yes.
Yeah, like that song. The Girl Is Mine, Michael Jackson and Paul McCartney. You're not fooling nobody with that, Michael, are you?
Number 8, I Want to Do It With You.
Do what?
That's the song, darling.
Oh.
Don't get fresh. Barry Manilow.
Wonder what it is, though.
Well, with Barry Manilow, who could say?
Well, exactly.
Yeah. Don't know what he wants to do or who he wants to do it with.
No. Number 7, Star Maker, The Kids from Fame. We're happy now.
So happy now.
I was a huge Kids from Fame fan, obviously.
Well, yeah.
Yes, it's one of the reasons I did drama at uni. We used to put on shows when Fame was a thing, got the album, obviously. I remember my father doing something outside on the landing, ages pottering around in my bedroom, and then suddenly Star Maker came up the stairs and he'd rigged up 2 extra speakers from the stereo and one was at the top of the stairs. Shows you how small our house was because you needed one wire to go to the sitting room. And suddenly Star Maker, so you could have music throughout the house, and the first one we heard was Star Maker.
Oh,
you could imagine.
Yeah.
If I'd known what the tenor lady was, I'd have been wearing it.
Number 6, Ooh La La La, brackets, Let's Go Dancing, Kool and the Gang. Oh, yes, do know that
Yeah,
one.
it's a nice one.
Yeah.
Nice little one. Sexual Healing by Marvin Gaye.
Steady.
Mm-hmm.
Great songs on this chart.
There is. It's a really good one.
Yeah. Do You Really Want to Hurt Me?
Yes, I do.
No, that's the name of the song.
Oh, shit. Sorry, everybody. Sorry.
By Culture Club.
Another good song.
At least I know where I stand now.
Yes. Mad World, Tears for Fears. Gosh, it's hit after hit on this chart, isn't it? I think we found our vintage.
Yes, I think we've peaked on this one. No sign of shaky yet, though.
No sign of shaky.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it doesn't stop.
I'm going to wet myself. Heartbreaker, Dionne Warwick.
Great song. Written by the Bee Gees.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Should we see what's number one?
Let's do
If
it.
it's going to be something shit like Benny Hill.
An anticlimax now, isn't it?
Oh, that's all right. I Don't Want to Dance, Eddie Grant. That's a nice one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Should we have a look and see if Australia was as hot as our top 10?
I'm sure they would be. Okay, number 10, The Clash, Rock the Casbah. Yes, very good.
Yeah.
Very good taste there, Australia. Thank you.
Cheap Trick at number 9, If You Want My Love. Don't know that one.
No. Chicago, Hard to Say I'm Sorry. Number 8.
No Chicago, but not that song.
Oh, you will?
I know Chicago.
Hard for me to say I'm sorry.
It's not ringing any bell at all.
I'll shut up then.
At number 7, Frida. ABBA Frida. Solo effort written by Phil Collins. I Know There's Something Going On.
Yes, I do remember that. Now, ABBA have got a very special place in Australia's heart,
Yes, they have. They were enormous. ABBA Mania was huge. And if you've ever seen ABBA the movie, it's set on their Australian tour and it looks absolutely insane. I think at one point they had 6 singles in the Australian top 10.
Wow.
You know, they're bigger than the Beatles in Australia. They were huge. And things like Muriel's Wedding, which you've already talked about, obviously riffs on ABBA and Dancing Queen.
Yeah. Number 6, Yazoo, Don't Go.
Great song.
Great song.
Gosh.
I'm impressed with this chart.
Yeah, number 5, Trio, Da Da Da. Do you remember that one? I used to love that one, doing the little Casio organs. A Da Da Da.
Oh, yeah.
They were a German group, bit like Kraftwerk.
Right, I see. Yeah, that was all going on at this time, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, number 4, Melissa Manchester, You Should Hear How She Talks About You.
Number 3, Bananarama, Shy Boy. Oh, that was an unexpected treat. Yeah, my girls.
You would have been in your element in
I would have been.
rocking around Australia in
I would have
1982.
been.
Survivor, Eye of the Tiger, number 2.
Gosh. Should we see what number 1 is?
Let's do it.
An Australian number 1 is Dexter's Midnight Runners. Come on, Eileen.
Come on. Well done, Australia. That's all I can say.
Well done, Australia. That's a good top 10.
Yes.
I think 1982 was our peak year.
Yeah, I think so. And obviously this top 10 was the landscape that our episode of Prisoner fell into.
Yes, it does. So without further ado, should we incarcerate ourselves into Wentworth and examine Prisoner Cell Block H? So, Dave, would you like to tell us a little bit about Prisoner Cell Block H, please?
I will. Prisoner, to give it its Australian title,
Right.
known in the UK and the US as Prisoner Cell Block H and in Canada as Caged Women, is an Australian television soap opera which was broadcast on the Network 10 from 1979 to 1986, running for 8 series and 692 episodes. Prisoner was the first Australian series to feature a primarily female-dominated cast and carried the slogan, "If you think prison is hell for a man, imagine what it would be like for a woman." The series was produced by the Grundy organisation and was conceived by Reg Watson, and it was filmed at the Network 10 Melbourne studios at Nunawading, which is the same studios that Neighbours was subsequently filmed at.
Okay.
And continues to be filmed at. The series garnered an international cult following, and it was one of Australia's most successful media exports, exported to 80 countries, performing particularly well in the United States and Canada, and it also built a large audience in the UK and other European countries, especially Sweden.
Gosh.
Sammy Davis Jr. was a major fan of
Wow.
Prisoner Cell Block H.
Gosh.
And wanted to appear in a role, but had other engagements at the time. And there's actually a picture of him with Joan The Freak Ferguson, which we'll go on to talk about later on. The cult status of the series has seen many adaptations, including Wentworth.
Fabulous.
The series is loosely based on a British prison drama series Within These Walls, although it focuses more on the prisoners or the inmates rather than the prison staff. and it has since endured worldwide, acquiring cult classic status, particularly for its occasionally outrageous plot lines. It was famed for championing LGBT characters. Several lesbian characters were introduced into the show, including prisoner Frankie Doyle, Judy Bryant, who appears in our episode, and the corrupt and sinister officer Joan Ferguson, aka The Freak, who also features in our episode.
Yes.
Why don't you give us a little rundown in what happened in this episode, Lee?
Well, what happens in this episode? It's another quiet day. There's a drug overdose, women on women violence, plotting, revenge, a fire, a woman on fire, black-gloved villainesses, and a cliffhanger ending worthy of a serious finale. Just another day at the office. I mean, where to begin with this episode?
Let's begin with famed prisoner Bea Smith.
Right.
Bea Smith was the top dog.
She's the top dog
of Wentworth Detention Centre for a good many years at the start of the show. Bea Smith became a kind of cult character because she was hard, but she was fair. That she had a good, strong moral compass as to what was right and what was wrong. And if there was injustice around, then she would mete out punishment for injustice. She didn't suffer fools gladly. She acquired a top dog status because she was hardcore, and her daughter Debbie had died of a drug overdose, so she was fiercely anti-drugs.
This is exactly what happens in Wentworth.
Right.
It follows Bea's story.
Yeah.
From incarceration through.
Yeah. She's in prison for murder.
Right. Okay. Not that strong a moral compass.
And she's due for parole. And what happens in this episode is she's denied parole.
Yes.
And given an extra 6 months until her next parole meeting. And quickly transpires that her arch nemesis, Joan The Freak Ferguson, has engineered and plotted behind Bea Smith's back to paint her in a bad light.
To keep her in. Right.
Which, there's a scene in this episode where Joan comes in and gloats to Bea Smith that
yes.
I'm the reason why you're still in here.
Yes.
Which sets off the trajectory for this episode of Bea Smith wanting to exact revenge on
Not
Joan.
Kill her, just put her in hospital.
Just put her in hospital because she doesn't want to add any time to her. She doesn't want to murder her because she doesn't want to give Joan the satisfaction of keeping her behind bars for another life sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we should talk at this stage about Joan The Freak Ferguson. I mean, she was brought in. She's sadistic, very clearly lesbian.
Kind of a bit of a dodgy representation of lesbianism.
I suppose so.
Yes. But she's clearly sadomasochistic.
Yes.
She's very much the kind of Rosa Klebb school of lesbian villains.
Yeah, she's made up, harsh, hair scraped back. She enjoys violence. She enjoys watching the women suffer.
And she hates the women.
Yes.
And there's a scene with her and the nice prison guard, the goody two-shoes one, Mrs.
Morris.
And Meg Morris. Yeah, yes. She's so peachy clean, isn't she? And like Ferguson says something like, the only way to treat people like them is to step on them all the time, you know. And then Mrs. Morris, the nice one, says, you'd be just as happy herding animals. Those women are human beings. And Joan's like, take off your rose-coloured spectacles, you know.
Then Joan says, you can't treat whores, thieves and murderers like a bunch of girls at a finishing school.
Yeah.
Running underneath all this, giant clash between Bea Smith, the prisoner, and the Freak, the warden.
Clash of the Titans.
Clash of the Titans. There's also running stories of the other warders getting suspicious of Joan's methods of meting out punishment, etc. So they're on the kind of the prisoners and the warders are kind of on the same side, united against Joan The Freak Ferguson. And that confrontation that you talked about between Meg Morris, who was in the entire series and she was considered quite saintly. She was the good representation of a prison warder as opposed to the dark side of Joan. So that was very much battle of wits, battle of good versus evil. And it's quite interesting, without getting over analytical, that Meg Morris is petite, feminine, blonde, the representation of good femininity. And Joan Ferguson is sadistic, hair pulled back, quite masculine. Looking, representing the dark side of femininity.
Wears leather gloves like a villain in an Italian giallo movie. Pulls the gloves on very carefully. And that's a trope that continues in Wentworth.
And
I can imagine the Freak was a genuinely scary character in the way that she is in Wentworth as well. She's really scary. Yeah. You don't want to fuck with her at all.
And Maggie Kirkpatrick, who played Joan the Freak, said that what makes the Freak scary is that she's always quite still in her movements. It's all very measured and considered. And Maggie Kirkpatrick says that came about because on her first day working with all these women, by that point, the actors who appeared in Prisoner were kind of national figures. And it came from her being absolutely petrified on her first day and having to walk into a scene and give this air of menacing authority. But it actually came from fear.
Right. Worked very well.
And I think it's been said that Maggie Kirkpatrick, who plays the Freak, and Val Lehman, who plays Bea Smith, really relished their scenes together. They both had a good, strong work ethic and really enjoyed the monumental meetings they had with each other.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, there is a bit of fight. There's a fight between them, isn't there?
Yeah.
Which doesn't quite go as far as it could have done.
No, I mean...
Basically, Bea kind of punches her, I think.
Yeah, what happens is Bea Smith wants to exact her revenge on Joan and engineers a meeting between them where she's basically got the Freak cornered in a cell. And what ensues is a massive fight. It's the big denouement of this long-running story. Bea gets the better of Joan and basically chokes her with a metal pole until the point where you think that Joan's died and she's actually gone too far. She's lost control and she's killed Joan. And then what happens is a fire breaks out, which is obviously a massive diversion to divert the entire prison away from this big confrontation. The fire breaks out and Joan regains consciousness, gets the better of Bea,
wallops her with a
crowbar, and then proceeds to bash her head against the floor. I mean, it's
throttles her
violent.
first. Yeah, it's uber violent, but
it's quite funny.
You can tell they're acting it. Yeah. You can tell. One thing I loved about Wentworth is it did a lot of these stories, but for me, the violence in Prisoner didn't quite hit the landing in a way that the violence in Wentworth did. Obviously, times have changed and what you can show is different, but it did feel a little bit stage acting. Yeah. It felt very much of, you've got to rehearse this and block this and film it in an hour.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of throttling acting as opposed to fisticuffs and choreography. You know? So
it's funny you should mention choreography because apparently for a lot of their stunts they didn't have stunt coordinators.
You can really tell.
Yeah. They kind of had to work it out for themselves.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like stage fighting.
Yeah.
There's a lot of it, which is why they spend a lot of time throttling as opposed to balletic fight sequences.
Yeah, it's high camp, unintentionally high camp.
It is,
but that's where we leave.
So the final shot is Joan peering through the bars.
So Joan's on the other side of the bars.
Yes.
Bea's on the other side of the bars.
With the keys.
The doors have locked because of the circuit breakers and everything.
Yeah.
Bea's got the keys. Joan's pleading with her, give us the keys so we can both escape. And Bea says, I've got nothing else to live for now. If I'm going to die, you're going to come with me. Which is great. And
Cue
it's so
titles.
dramatic.
Yeah.
So that was great. I had a lot of time for these women growing up. Just watching this back, it just brought a whoosh of memories back.
Yes.
If you watch a soap like this or watch a long-running drama like this, you do invest in these characters. So running alongside this drama in the prison, there's scenes at Driscoll House, which is a probation house, a halfway house.
Right, I did wonder.
Yeah. So and it's run by Judy Bryant, the lovable lesbian, who has been inside and come out and wants to help to rehabilitate prisoners coming out into the outside world.
And there's a drug overdose storyline, is it?
Yes.
That wasn't really...
Yes, two of the characters, Sarah and Alan, take a drug overdose. Alan dies, Sarah comes back. We won't go too far into this storyline, but what I thought it kind of showed was, the halfway house is trying to rehabilitate, integrate them back into the outside world, but are met with hostility by the police. If anything happens, immediately it's like, oh, well, they're all old crims, so we're going to treat them harsher than we would perhaps innocent people.
Right.
Moral, upstanding citizens.
Right.
So they continue to be, even once they're released, looked down upon as kind of vermin.
Right. And speaking of moral, upstanding citizens, can we talk about Miss Babs? Sorry, not Miss Babs, the governor.
Erica Davidson, played superbly by Patsy King.
She is very posh, isn't she?
She's
practically British aristocracy, her accent. Yes. And she's clearly based on the Googie Withers character from within these walls, She's so proper. isn't she?
Yeah.
It's interesting, that kind of class, because Australian culture has the same kind of class distinctions as British culture. So you can see, it's probably why we can relate to a lot of their dramas so readily. She's just super posh. She's very Acorn Antique.
Yeah.
Her outfits, she's a bit Margaret Thatcher in her outfits, but just her voice, her clip delivery.
And like Barbara from the assistant from Doctor Who, the first Doctor's assistant.
Yes.
Erica Davidson's hair gets bigger and poofier.
Does it?
Season by season.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, she is high glamour, high camp. And
Yeah.
she's the one character, I would say, in this whole thing that is allowed to be glamorous.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
Which I kind of, it like runs me into what I wanted to say about the production of this. It's like we said, this was kind of the first long-running drama serial to feature predominantly women and celebrate womanhood in all its messiness and all its fineness and everything. And I think what makes this show work is the fact that obviously this is running alongside Dallas in the States and then later Dynasty and everything, where the women were all glammed up to the nines. These women were all stripped back, no makeup, and all in the same, roughly the same uniform.
Yes.
Which meant that it allowed their characters to shine through because they had nothing else to rely on. It was basically performance, which some were questionable, let's not lie. Some were magnificent, but it really allowed the character to shine through. So they had to give each character a history, a different backstory and different personalities. So it's not just 10 women in a room all playing the same character, you know. And also the set is so stark, you know, it's basically just brick walls all around, isn't it?
It's grim. It's a grim looking show.
So there's nothing really to look at apart from the women themselves, which I think is kind of like a key factor in its success, that it had such hugely characterful people in it.
Yes. I mean, the aesthetic of it is grim and a half. As you say, the denim of the prison uniforms, the lighting. There's one scene in the canteen when the food looks fucking awful. Watching this grimness, and I was trying to work out why it was so camp. Because camp as an aesthetic tends to favour the glam, or it makes the unusual out of the everyday. But it is undoubtedly a camp. I don't know if it's a particularly camp episode, but even stuff like, so one of the characters sets a fire, and the other character, the bad one with the spiky hair, who's proper scary.
Margot Gaffney, she's brilliant.
She's really scary. She sets a bigger fire. And at one point, the fire looks a little bit out of control in the studio. It looks a bit like that Blue Peter when they have that fire with the girl guys, and so the guys have to rush in with the fire extinguisher. I was like, no one's really got a handle on this fire. And then so you get this delicious bit when there's a character trying to break into a room, but can't obviously act too hard because the sets will wobble. So she does this very polite bashing a door in, which is camp in itself. The incidental music is all clearly stock music, often just plonked in. There's very little relation to the actual action, which is another layer of camp. And then suddenly, in amongst this kind of artificiality and kind of the sense that they're trying really hard to be serious.
Yes.
A fucking woman's on fire and runs out the cell screaming really horrifically and down the corridor, never to be seen again in this episode, which adds another layer of camp. And even though it's kind of horrible, the campness, which isn't overtly camp, it just all coalesces in this really kind of grim campness, which I was quite surprised
Well, I
at.
think the whole camp stems from conflict between women, where you know it's going to kick off. It's been leading up to this kind of final
but Tenko's not camp. You know, what is it about this that... I mean...
Also, I think budget-wise...
It's budget,
you know,
it's budget, isn't it?
Tenko did look quite glossy, particularly at the start.
It did. It had a really seamless group of actors, clearly. There's an opening scene where Bea's gang are smashing up one of the cells. And it's just all a little bit low rent, isn't it? There's no... I'm not getting any sense of a real threat or real violence. And that, again, makes it camp because it's unknowing. So the second you try and be camp, it loses the camp, you know. So this is unknowingly camp. And I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's great. It's part of its charm, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really
Yes. It's kitsch, which isn't necessarily camp, but it is charming enough to camp its way.
Yeah. Now, I agree with all of that. Budget-wise, it's very cheap looking. Performance-wise, there are varying levels of performance. What I will say in Prisoner's defence, from a director's point of view, is it's really well shot on the budget that it's being given. 2 45-minute episodes a week. So I think it's about 100 episodes a year. Not sure on the maths exactly. But when you're producing drama on that level, you've got to go like the bloody clappers.
Yeah.
And I would imagine the budget would diminish from year to year, as these things normally do. So to produce drama on that level, I think is pretty phenomenal. And also, like I say, a lot of derision is handed to performance and budget and set and stuff. But I think the stories in Prisoner are some of the best stories that I've witnessed in soap operas, continuing dramas. They obviously research it with the probation service and the prison service, so it's all rooted in truth.
Right.
And even though there are elements of melodrama and high camp, as we say, the long-running storylines are great. And it really seeds this level of tension, which I think is amazing. I think the individual script writers as well, there were some really killer lines in this, you know, particularly from Joan Ferguson when she's talking about how prisoners are scum of the earth. Really good script writing there. But also what I think Prisoner does really, really well is in the direction.
Right.
Because I know from personal experience, when you're under a budget, to direct something well takes a real skill.
Right.
And there's the infamous laundry set, isn't there?
Yes.
Where whoever's top dog at the moment
is in charge of the steamer.
Yeah,
the
it's
steam
Bea
press.
Smith in charge of the steam press. And that's what you call a precinct set. It's where basically all storylines can converge. It's like the Queen Vic in EastEnders. All the storylines can merge and interweave there. And those sets are particularly difficult to film. You won't have much time to film it either. And I saw on Prisoner, on numerous occasions, a massive 10-page scene all filmed in one shot.
Right.
Jumping from one storyline to the other. It's the women who move around. So it's obviously highly choreographed and blocked through, as we call it in the biz. And the camera just follows the action, which is really difficult to do.
Right.
You know, because normally you cut into it. You know, you have a camera script and you cut backwards and forwards to various women. But that is a really efficient way of shooting that takes half the time than doing multiple passes and stuff. So I think for that, it's quite a feat of TV making.
Endurance.
Yeah, absolutely. But also there was one scene in this where Bea was lying on the bed and she was telling her cellmate about her plan to get revenge. And that was all done in one shot as well, which I thought was really nice because it just focuses on the character. It allows you to just focus on the character.
Yes, yeah. And I will have to say though, I'm never slag it off because it looks cheap or the sets would wobble or stuff. Because hey, I wouldn't watch 60s and 70s Doctor Who some of the time.
Yes.
You know. So, if anything, the cheapness of it just enhanced my enjoyment of it. You know, I could appreciate. But if you are expecting something that looks expensive, then maybe watch Wentworth.
Yes.
There's one of my favourite bits was I think it was the kitchen set, and there's a pile of boxes. I don't know where this plot was going, but there's been a delivery of a pile of boxes, which are basically a lot of boxes with like Wentworth Prison written on them in big letters. Yeah.
Which acts as the accelerant to the fire. What starts off as like an innocent, innocuous fire to create a diversion. Yeah. Because of the surprise over-delivery of boxes of turpentine. Yeah.
I love that.
Turns into this massive raging inferno, doesn't it?
Yeah. And so they get 2 prison wardens going, well, where's this come from? You need to get it shifted. Erica Davison's clearly just standing off camera and just walks in and goes, what's all this? And it was just so Acorn Antiques. I loved it. Chekhov's gun, Chekhov's pile of turpentine boxes are going to be plonked there.
Yes. And you could just imagine from that scene, like, darling, just edge that box around so we can get there. As the camera sweeps past, we can get turpentine.
Yes, got to make sure they can see turpentine. Yeah.
But you see, I think, you know, I agree with everything you're saying about its charm, and you love it for its charm and its restricted budget and its time constraints. You look at something like Marvel's Avengers Endgame, or one of the ones that I don't even know the title of, spend millions upon millions upon millions of pounds on this high budget glossy film, and the story's shit.
Yes, it's got to be the stories, hasn't it? It's always got to be the stories.
So it's always the stories you've got to invest in. If the stories are convincing and rooted in truth, then you can kind of forgive everything else about something, because that's what gives it its charm.
Yes, but also let's remember that Prisoner has got a tendency, and Wentworth, to go into the extraordinary sometimes, and the camp.
Yeah.
And the camp storyline sometimes,
Yeah.
you know. But you're right, it's the characters. If the stories are shit, then nobody's going to watch it, are they? Yeah.
No.
And what Marvel needs clearly, some boxes of turpentine to
Exactly.
the shot. Yeah.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
I would suggest...
Captain America going, where have these come from? What have they just dumped these here for?
And I would suggest it needs an actual story.
Yes. The language was a shocker. There's a lot of swearing, a lot of cussing. I wasn't expecting. And I'd forgotten the stripped back titles at the beginning. It's just like doom with a flash of somebody's face behind with their prisoner numbers and stuff. And you don't get the theme tune until the end credits roll.
No.
You know.
So immediately it's kind of like setting this stark, authoritarian...
Stark and grim. It's stark and grim. It really
grim.
is. Yeah. Did you notice at the end the sponsors come up?
No.
So if you watch the end of the credits, it's had who's been sponsoring the episode.
see.
And two of the sponsors this week are Travel Lodge. Perfect welcome is always guaranteed. And Grace Brothers Removals. No, clearly not Grace Brothers Why Are You Being So, but it really made me chuckle to see Grace Brothers suddenly appear on the screen as that warden's walking down the corridor, checking her locks to the music.
Well, we all know the element of a good soap that's really needed to hook viewers in is the cliffhanger.
Yes.
This was a masterclass in how to invent a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
You've got Bea's brutal head slam.
Yeah.
She had her head slammed in. You've got
Brutally head slam.
You've got the character of Mouse being fried to death.
Is she the one on fire?
Yeah, she's the one on fire.
Does she die?
Yeah, she dies.
Wow, gosh.
Spoiler alert if you're planning to watch Prisoner right from episode 1 to 326, but Mouse does die in this episode. And, I mean, let's face it, I mean, the hairspray on her hair.
Wow. She's up like a rocket. No wonder she blew up like that.
I know. Paddy's stuck in an air vent.
Yes, randomly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Barbara, having really feebly bashed the door down with a fire hydrant.
Because she doesn't want to wobble set
Yes.
for her,
is overcome by fumes.
That's right.
The governor, the wonderful Erica, runs back in to help her prisoners.
That's right.
I'm the boss. I'm responsible. I shall go in and save everybody.
There's a lot of dry ice in this throughout this whole sequence, aren't there?
Yeah. And then Bea tells the freak she's got nothing left to live for. They'll die together.
God.
So yeah, if you're a fan of Prisoner,
Thrilling.
then this cliffhanger
Was everything.
was everything you could ever hope for.
Yeah, gosh.
Yes.
So what would you give this then? What would your rating be?
I would give this episode and Prisoner in general 9 over-ordered boxes of turpentine out of 10.
Right. I'm going to have to give it 2 marks. The first as a piece of television, which is going to be 6.5 black gloves out of 10.
Fine.
As a piece of kitsch camp outrageousness, which I thoroughly enjoyed, I will give it 9 black gloves out of 10.
Well, you can't say fairer than that.
You can't.
And I thank you for your 9 black gloves. Prisoner Cell Block 8 is a hill that I would die on.
Yeah, well, I'm
to
not
defend
surprised.
It's
it was
great.
shit, but it was great.
Yeah. So, gazers, if you want to watch this episode of Prisoner, I would suggest it just for a bit of fun and frolics and high
Have
camp.
a drink.
Have a drink first.
Have a drink first, definitely.
We've posted the link. I thank you all.
That was Prisoner Cell Block 8. Very good. Thank you for suggesting it. Enjoyed that.
You're welcome. Lee, what are we going to be talking about next week?
Well, next week, Chuck.
Surprised me then. It was like something like The Exorcist coming at me.
Well, next week, Chuck, we're going to Lara laughs because I can't do it.
Is it Digi Barlow?
So who did you borrow? Next week, we are taking on a television legend as we go back to a 1996 episode of the Cilla Black-fronted dating quiz show, Blind Date. I look like a fucking Dalek. I will try and get me Chinchilla Slack impression up to speed by the time we record
Yeah,
it.
do it. I'll suggest doing a vocal warm-up, otherwise it's going to damage your chords.
Yes,
Keep doing that.
it is. It really is. A vodka warm-up, did you say?
Vocal warm-up.
I thought you said a vodka warm-up.
That too.
We'll post the episode we're going to watch on YouTube.
Absolute juggernaut, wasn't it, Blind Dates?
Juggernaut. Saturday nights.
Yeah.
When you're getting ready to go out.
In the UK, obviously, international listeners may not have heard of it, but it's
Well, you've got
worth it.
and you've got your own versions in your own countries. Everybody everybody has. Yeah, but we'll post the link to, if only to see Scylla in her queen of primetime glory.
Yeah.
You know, we talk about the funny chinchilla slack stories we have.
Well, are we going to be talking about the urban legends of Chinchilla Black?
Champagne in the dressing room?
Yes.
That's not an urban legend, that's the truth. Leave that as a little cliffhanger.
You wouldn't want to cross Scylla, would you?
You wouldn't want to cross Scylla.
Wow. You wouldn't want to cross us either. So, gazers, if you haven't pressed that follow button yet, please do. And also, if you want to follow our socials, please do, at Podcast Gaze on TikTok and Instagram. And if you want to email us with any thoughts you've had on previous topics, or if you want to suggest a new topic, then email us at theproblematicgaze@gmail.com. And also, don't forget to leave us a review wherever you get your podcast, because reviews really help spread the word of the Problematic Gaze.
Good, right, I'm off to move these bloody boxes of turpentine someone's left here really randomly. What are you doing?
I'm off to go and slip on a pair of black leather gloves and leave the rest to your imagination.
Wow, on that bombshell.
Yeah.
Watch yourselves, everybody.
Yeah.
Au reservoir.
Au reservoir.